Did you know that Finland has two official state churches? One Lutheran Protestant and one Orthodox. Well, this video will be about how the Finnish Orthodox Church became an official church of Finland. And for that we will go back to the very beginning of Christianity in Finland. Christianity started to spread in Finland from the east in the Orthodox form and from the west in the Catholic form. At the latest in the beginning of the 12th century. And some of the earliest excavated crosses from this period, dating from the 12th century onward, are similar to a type found in Novgorod and Kiev, thus Orthodox crosses. So Orthodox Christianity has always existed in Finland from the very beginning, alongside the Catholic Church, which would later turn into the Lutheran Protestant Church of Sweden. Similarly to how the more southern eastern areas of Europe were divided and converted between Catholicism and Orthodoxy, which you can see in a video about Catholics in Ukraine that Justinian Guy has done and that I was involved in. Orthodox Christianity had a very strong early influence on Finland. And you can actually see this early influence in that some of the core concepts of the Christian vocabulary in the Finnish language are supposedly to be loans from early Slavic languages, which in turn were borrowed from medieval Greek, rather than terms taken from Latin and the Catholic tradition of Christianity. This is not to say that Catholics were not just as present in Finland at this early age as the Orthodox. And later in time, during the 13th century, the inevitable clash between the two expanding countries, Sweden and Novgorod, would result in religious wars in the name of Catholicism and Orthodoxy in Finland. Wars which eventually ended with the Treaty of Göteborg in 1323, which primarily established the borders of the Swedish domain, but more importantly for this video, established the permission of Orthodox Christians being allowed to live in certain Finnish areas and to practice their religion in peace without major persecutions. And the terms of this treaty more or less lasted until the 16th to the 17th century, when the Reformation from Catholicism to Protestantism happened within Sweden. And in its wake happened a lot of civil wars within Sweden with regards to religious belonging, and later expansionist wars made by Sweden. And remember, Finland is part of Sweden at this time, so they were also involved in all of these wars, which were justified by polemics against both Catholics, other Protestant nations and Orthodox kingdoms such as Russia. And thus you see increased persecutions of religious minorities within the Swedish realm. Though it should be said that this period is very mixed. For example, Karl IX of Sweden, Charles IX, did wage war against Russia with anti-Orthodox pretexts. And in the Russian parts of Karelia, which are on the borders to Finland, the Swedish forces destroyed and burned to the ground the monasteries of Valem and Konevetsky repeatedly in the 16th and 17th century. Orthodox monks and priests that did not flee were executed on the spot, and many Orthodox believing peasants that didn't repent and convert to the Lutheran Protestantism of the Swedish National Church met the same fate. But it should also be mentioned that Karl IX was supported a lot by the Orthodox Christians within the Swedish territory, promising that their rights would be respected, and also that the Orthodox believing men of power that were mostly in the east of Finland would gain from the campaigns against Russia by being the first beneficiaries of the conquered land from Russia. Karl IX was also much more focused upon suppressing the Catholics than he was upon suppressing any Orthodox minority, as he had rose to power through his anti-Catholic stance in the Swedish Reformation Wars, and thus had to focus upon suppressing Catholic revolts and counter movements, rather than suppressing any Orthodox population that was within the Swedish domain. However, after the time of Charles IX, you would later get more persecutions against the Orthodox in eastern Finland, as the Swedish state tried to convert the Orthodox population to the state religion of Lutheran Protestantism. Several restrictions were imposed upon the Orthodox minority in eastern Finland. For example, they were not allowed to obtain priests from Russia, which meant in the long run that they did not have any priests at all and had to make do with laymen doing the Orthodox rites. They had to pay additional taxes as long as they did not convert to the faith of Lutheran Protestantism, and they were also subject to various other forms of punitive measures, such as forced conversion and forced military service of their youth, as a type of taxation directed towards the Orthodox as a religious minority. As Lutheranism was the only religion recognized as true in Sweden, to be an Orthodox Christian was to be a second-class citizen, and about 2/3 of the Orthodox population fled to Central Russia from under the oppression during this later 17th century period of persecution. And the Finnish-speaking minority population of Tver Karelia in modern-day Russia is a result of this persecution, because people fled to that place from Finland. And the Swedish state encouraged Lutherans to occupy the deserted farms in Finnish Karelia in eastern Finland. And this massive flight of Orthodox Finns away from Finland meant that Orthodoxy had ceased to be the main religion of any part of Finland. However, in the remoter areas of eastern Finland, and especially in the Karelian region, like Ilomantsi, Orthodox minorities survived. The persecution that happened during this time must be seen in the context of the persecutions that were happening during the times of the Reformation and religious conflicts generally in Europe. For example, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and the Catholic conversion campaigns there against the Orthodox under Sigismund Vasa, the nephew of Karl IX, who actually was ousted by Karl IX from ruling Sweden due to various religious conflicts between Catholics and Protestants, where Karl IX represented the Protestant side. But in any case, similar campaigns of converting Orthodox people happened in the Ukrainian areas under the control of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. So it was not unique to Sweden. But going back to the dominion of Sweden, the period of the power of Sweden and of great Lutheran persecution of Orthodox people met its limits after 2 wars. The Great Northern War, which ended in the Treaty of Nystad in 1721, and the Hat War of 1741 to 1743 with the Treaty of Turku in 1743. Sweden lost all its provinces in the Baltic region and a portion of eastern Finland to Russia, and in addition had to ease up on its persecutions of Orthodox people. Not to mention that they had lost most of their Orthodox minorities in the eastern territories that were lost. And eventually, in the 19th century, Sweden would be losing complete control of Finland with the annexation of Finland by Russia in the Finnish War. With Russia taking over Finland, the Russian Orthodox Church became an alternative religious option in Finland, and some Finns converted to Orthodoxy as the Orthodox Church was promoted. Conversions happened, particularly in the eastern regions of the country that had traditionally been Orthodox before. Of course, the control by Russia of Finland meant a stop of Lutheran persecution of Orthodox people. Though it should be said that in the beginning there was very little persecution of Protestants, and the region of Finland was granted relatively great autonomy and religious freedom. This was the case until after St. Petersburg adopted Russification policies in 1898, when issues began to erupt regarding religious freedom and the autonomy of Finland. The Russian Orthodox Church was made the official only church, and persecutions of Protestants began, which created a great amount of unrest and resentment in Finland, which during the First World War and the subsequent collapse of the Russian Empire in 1917 resulted in the Finnish Declaration of Independence and the end of the Grand Duchy of Finland within Russia and a following civil war in 1918. Shortly after Finland had declared independence from Russia in 1917, the Orthodox Church of Finland declared its autonomy from the Russian Church, and Finland's first constitution of 1919 granted the Orthodox Church an equal status with the Protestant Church of Finland as a state church, in return that it cut ties with the Moscow Patriarchate. Making the Orthodox Church an independent state church of Finland was done for 2 reasons. Firstly, it was to cut the ties of the Orthodox population of Finland with Russia, as it was feared that this connection would be used to undermine the Finnish nation. Secondly, the Finnish parliament wanted to integrate the Orthodox population of Finland into the nation as an equal part of the nation, so as not to create the background for another civil war again, or create potential enemies of the Finnish state that would aid Russian aggression, thus making the Orthodox Church an independent equal to the Lutheran Protestant Church of Finland was thus a way to go about this. And in 1923, the Orthodox Church of Finland completely separated from the Russian Church, becoming an autonomous church affiliated with the ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople, rather than the Patriarchate of Moscow. Today, the Finnish Orthodox Church is the second largest religious denomination in Finland, with about 170 official churches, 59,000 registered believers, not counting unregistered ones, and 2 monastery complexes. And this was the overview about how Finland got an official Orthodox State church as a reflection of a long-lasting Orthodox minority that has always existed in Finland. I hope you found it interesting.
Please do subscribe, as it would help the channel spread awareness about the humanities.
اشتركوا بالقناة من فضلكم.